I notice every few months on TikTok there's a new movement or exercise that defies the laws of exercise science. It's one movement that will burn fat, tone your arms, give you a dump truck, lose your belly fat, do your taxes. And what is that movement right now? Combo moves or combination movements. Combo moves, combination exercises, whatever you want to call them, they're essentially 2 to 3 different movement patterns strung together. So for example, a reverse lunge with a bicep curl, a squat with an overhead press, an RDL with a row, and there's nothing wrong with any of these movements. I actually love using them in programming when someone has limited access to weights, they get bored just doing traditional movement patterns, maybe they're working more on coordination or muscular endurance, so there are reasons to program these types of exercises. But today I'm going to show you a few different examples of the marketing around these types of movements and explain why the claims they're making aren't quite true. But before we jump into that, we have to thank the sponsor of today's video, Skillshare. Skillshare is an online learning community built to help you learn and grow. Whether you want to start a digital business or improve your painting skills, Skillshare has something for everyone. I recently got a new camera that is a huge upgrade from my Canon, but there's a pretty big learning curve. Now, luckily, Skillshare is making the learning process a lot smoother. I just started taking Beginner's Guide to Photography with Chris Brooker, and even though I'm not planning to take photos with this camera, I'm finding this course is helping me understand the basics of what my shutter speed could be at and how to adjust the white balance, all of the basics that I never really had to think about while using my Canon. Now, my entire business is based off of video content, so I'm really looking forward to browsing the other mirrorless camera courses within the platform. And like I said, there are thousands of courses over endless topics, so no matter what your goal is or what you'd like to learn, remember it is never too small to tackle, and Skillshare can help you along the way. Now, if you are interested in Skillshare, I've got a deal for you. The first 1,000 people to use my link down in the description box below will get a free month trial to Skillshare. So let me know if you snag one of those memberships and what course you're taking, and thank you one more time to Skillshare for sponsoring this video. Okay, we're gonna look at example number 1. This creator does not like me. Okay, so this is essentially a suitcase squat into a bicep curl into an overhead press or an Arnold press, basically. So 3 different movements: squat, curl, press. Let's discuss the claims that are being made in this video. She's lost 2 inches off of her waist. First of all, that's amazing, but I want to explain how you do that. It is by being in a caloric deficit. So that just means that you are taking in less energy than you're expending. And you could get yourself into a caloric deficit by doing movements like this and burning calories. You could do this by going on a walk. You could do this by adjusting your nutrition. There's nothing special about this movement when it comes to losing 2 inches off your waist, because we have to remember that you can't spot reduce fat, meaning that you can't choose where you lose fat on your body. So exercise is not going to fine tune where you're going to lose fat from. You're going to lose it off of your entire body kind of at once, but also your genetics are going to determine where you lose or gain that fat first. For me, it's always going to be my arms. I don't know. That's just how I'm built. So this marketing is a tricky way to be like, hey, it's spot reduction. But if you call them out on it, they're like, I never said spot reduction. That's what this is. Next claim, my glutes have grown. Okay, so we do have a squat variation in here. This is a suitcase squat. But this type of exercise is pretty knee dominant, meaning that it's gonna be focused more on the quads. So your quads are in charge of knee extension, and then your glutes are in charge of hip extension. For the most part, we're keeping it really simple. So while your glutes are involved with squats, I would actually say that things like RDLs, hip thrusts, these are going to be the exercises you wanna focus on for glute growth, because they're not gonna involve the quads at all. So essentially just changing the bias of what you're working, right? But let's say this is true, right? Maybe she did grow her glutes from this exercise. I would have to guess then that she is probably a beginner to movement. There's 2 reasons for this. Number 1, again, it's more of a quad focused movement than glutes. But number 2, and most importantly, the weight that you're going to be lifting here is not crazy heavy. The reason for this is because you're not going to be curling and pressing the same weight that you would be squatting, not for glute growth. Your glutes are simply way bigger muscles than your biceps and your shoulders. Also, like I said, in this squat, you're not only just using your glutes, you're also using your quads, which are also huge muscles. So if you're seeing glute growth from doing an exercise like this, which you're using pretty moderate weights for, you're probably very new to strength training, which again is fine, but this will not give you results long-term. And by results, I mean glute growth, the claim that we're trying to talk about here. Okay, next one. I've lost bra fat, spot reduction. Again, we've already talked about this. And my stomach is more toned. Again, spot reduction, but but also like, what does tone mean? Tone literally just means that like you have a low enough body fat percentage to see the muscle tone underneath. You can't tone a muscle. Like if you were to just look at muscle, like you can't tone it. It's toned. It's all about the fat on top. And the only way that science has shown us that we can lose fat at this point is to be in a caloric deficit. And now we understand how all of that works. So essentially, this is very sneaky marketing to stretch a truth so far you haven't actually really lied. You're just completely misleading people so that they continue to not understand how their bodies work. Let's go to number 2. All right, so this video is a little different. It's not inherently problematic. This creator does have other problematic videos, so I just didn't choose one of those. Essentially, what I want to show you in this video is what I would choose to do instead. So you can do all of the movements this creator is doing, but I'm going to explain to you why you want to do them and how you could actually program them to get better results. And let's talk about what I mean by results. I'm going to pop up the video right here, but I did a whole video talking about the long-term benefits of strength training, and then I briefly discussed like overall movement, like cardio and walking, nutrition, sleep, stress management. But these are all of the pillars for like a long, healthy life. And really what most of my clients are looking for is like, hey, I just want to feel and look better long term. So I'm going to be breaking down this video and what I would recommend under that lens. Because this video, these combo movements, they're not really strength training. Number one, you're not going to be able to lift heavy enough. Strength training is typically defined as lifting 60% of your 1 rep max. And number 2, you're just getting your heart rate up like way too high for this actually to be considered strength training. Workouts like this, you're going to see a lot of volume of work with very little rest. And without going like way too far deep into it, like maybe I'll do a video on this in the future, but if you're not taking enough rest time, if your heart rate is too elevated, you're basically just doing cardio. Like there is a different physiological response between cardio and strength training. So really what a lot of these workouts are is just cardio while holding medium weights, which again is fine if that's the way you want to get your cardio in. But if you actually want the benefits of strength training, which could be all of these aesthetic things that people are talking about, here's what I would do. Okay, so first movement, we've got a squat with a bicep curl to a curtsy lunge. If you want to get all 3 of these exercises in one workout, I would go pretty heavy for your squat. Heavy is relative to each person, depending on what you're working on, what equipment you have. And I would do that by itself, like 4 sets of 10, take a minute or 2 rest between each set. And then I would actually superset the curtsy lunge with the bicep curl. I really like that because you're getting a lower body unilateral movement that can target the quads and the glutes. And then you're going to give that lower body rest time as you isolate the upper body in a bicep curl. So I think that is a smarter, more strategic way to do these movements. Okay, next we have these standing marches. These are all the rage right now. So these are usually branded as like functional core movements, which like ask someone what they mean by that. They won't be able to define it. I have a whole video on functional core training if you would like my definition. Okay, so you see a lot of reasons for this. You hear core and hip flexors, right? Here's what I would actually prefer you to do. Regardless, I want you to switch this to one weight and I want you to bring it down to your shoulder. You can progress to this eventually, but I think that overhead is a little too challenging for most people to start. I would also recommend swapping out for a kettlebell instead because it's gonna make your core work a little bit harder. So if you wanna work your hip flexors, you could add a band around the arches of the feet and that's going to actually give your hip flexors some resistance. If you just want to work your core, I would do like an offset standing racked hold. To progress this, you can bring it onto one leg, and to progress this even more, you can do some fast little switches side to side. As long as you A, have a heavy enough weight, and B, are actually properly engaging your core, meaning that your ribs are pulled down, your hips are slightly tucked under, you will feel this in your core. But if you're simply just holding dumbbells above your head and passively lifting your knees up and down, yeah, you're not going to feel it in your core because it's all about mind-body connection with an exercise like this. And I would usually program this either in the warm-up if you're looking for some nice core and shoulder activation, or I would do it at the very end as like a core burnout. Sumo squat to a jump squat. Ooh, I actually like this as a superset. So I would go like real heavy for that sumo squat and then immediately drop the weight and do a superset with it of the jump squats. And you could do this in 2 different ways, in my opinion. If your goal is more endurance, you could do like for time, 20 to 30 seconds and just go, no rest. Or if you're working more for power, I would do between 1 and 10 reps and really work on trying to get as much air as possible every single time. Okay, and then finally, we've got this rotating press. I actually really like these. My only note is that she's not rotating all the way, so she's not getting like the most bang for her buck. I would really focus on full rotation, press through that back glute, and then you're gonna make it even more of a core and glute exercise as well. Okay, we have one more to look at. So I want to show you this one because I see a lot of this interchanging of the words combo and compound. And I want to explain to you the difference because they're very different. Like we already said, a combination movement is taking 2 or 3 movements and stringing them together. For example, a squat with a bicep curl. Compound movement is an exercise that utilizes many joints and many muscles to get the movement done, i.e. a squat. I am telling you right now, if you do any type of squat, let's just say like a dumbbell front rack squat, if you do that movement with excellent form, it is a full body movement, my friend. You are using your glutes, your quads, your hamstrings, your calves, your core, your shoulders, your lats. It is full body. But like we've already talked about, there is a physiological difference between lifting for strength training versus lifting for cardio. So in this video, I feel like it's just a lot of like cardio movements and like ab movements, which is all fine. Like I don't necessarily have an issue with this. I just have an issue with them calling them compound exercises. But like these movements are not inherently bad. If you've ever taken my core class on Friday mornings, movements look like this. They're fun, they're more for muscular endurance, we set things to the beat of the music, and that's because the class is more endurance based. Not every single workout needs to be working for like heavy lifting. Not every single workout needs to be optimal. I like to teach this class with movements like this because A, it still really benefits our body, just not in the same way that strength training does, but B, it's really freaking fun. And at the end of the day, you should be able to find at least some joy in your movement routine. Like, is everything always going to be like fun and giggles and happy? No, it's strength training. It's not going to tickle. It's going to be hard work. But if you can't find the enjoyment and fun along the way, you are never going to stick to it. So that's one of the reasons why I like to sprinkle in that type of stuff in my programming, because at the end of the day, if you're not having fun, what's the point? Okay. This is a nice little cozy spot with my Super John Champion shirt. This is Kevin's. So that's the current trend that I'm seeing on my For You page, but I know that everyone has like different curated feeds. So let me know if there's something else that you see on TikTok or on Instagram and you want debunked on the channel. Make sure you hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out, and I will see you all in the next one.